mentioned this. You talk about the running backs, talk about the defensive line.
I know where you're going. I feel like are you going? You're picking another position group.
Yeah, let's talk about Florida State's best player, Jammie Robinson. Man, the safety room that Florida State is going to have this year. I'm writing a very
he's down there. I'm trying to be a weatherman. I don't know what I'm doing, but I think he's
you do that a lot better than I did, man. I kind of botched that. But Jammie is going to be the best football player on Florida State this season. You saw how elite he was from the slot before Kevin Noles came in and took that role over. This is a guy who graded out as good as NFL top 40 picks last year. Wow. A guy like Jalen Petrie, very similar kind of role-wise. Jalen Petrie from Baylor played safety, played nickel corner, all these different spots. To me, the versatility that Jammie Robinson and Akeem Dent bring to Florida State, man, I think these guys are going to have a hell of a season. I think these are two really talented players. Obviously, Akeem Dent is a former 5-star guy, right? He was a corner coming out of high school. They convert him from corner to safety, go back and forth between positions a little bit. But when you finally allow him to be that safety next to Jammie Robinson, allow him to be that free safety, allow him to roam as much as we saw him roam in that back half of the season, Akeem was elite. And then we saw just how good he was in the spring too, Logan. This is a guy who got I think, probably more interceptions than anyone. Am I right about that, Logan? I think he got more interceptions.
Both in practices and by far in the scrimmages too. Yeah.
So, man, Akeem Dent, he has playmaker written all over him for me. This is a guy who he already, I think, on PFF's big board for the 2023 draft is a top 100 player. That's what's pretty limited playing time. So that's just the level of talent Akeem Dent is. But I think once we see him, get to be in that role next to Jammie consistently, man, those two guys are going to be really, really fucking special. And I think Jammie, man, he's just the best football player on this team. I think Jared Verse is going to be really good. I think a lot of other guys are going to do great things, but no one can do what Jammie does. He can play every single position in the defensive backfield that you want him to play, right? You can put him in that nickel. If you're uncomfortable with your outside corners, move Kevin Noles, Greedy Vance outside, stick Jammie in the slot. And then with teams in Florida State especially, basing their defense so much out of nickel so often now with the 5 defensive backs, 2 outside corners, the 2 safeties, and then the nickel guy. Having Jammie on this team, I just don't know if there's anyone who's a more valuable player than he is for Florida State. And that's kind of why I keyed in on this position specifically, is because I think if you lose either one of those guys, it is like terrible. Like the drop off from going from those guys to the next guy on the depth chart, it's just too much to ask of those guys beneath them. But when you have Akeem and Jammie together playing, and Adam Fuller can move Jammie all over the field, trust Akeem Dent, and they can make plays like they have been making, especially in the spring and towards the end of the year. I think this is going to be a really special safety tandem for Florida State. I think they're going to be 2 guys we're going to be watching, on Sunday in the future, and not just undrafted 4th, 5th round guys. I think we're looking at 2 day 1, day 2 NFL players. They're both going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds, in my opinion. So, yeah, man, I really just think these guys, they haven't even shown really what they can do in terms of the interceptions that I think they're going to have by the end of the season. And, I mean, Jammie had forced fumbles. He's all over the field. But those 2 guys are going to get – they're going to get after the ball, man.
Yeah, he can strip that ball. We saw that in his time last year with FSU. And the biggest thing, if those 2, the tandem can stay healthy, that would be gigantic for Florida State this upcoming season. Because, like you said, Jammie was kind of limited to the beginning start of spring. But like Coach Mike Norvell said, after a couple of full-on practices for Jammie being plugged back in there, that defense just hits differently. And it plugs up a lot of holes, not only just in how he does in coverages, but how he plays in the run game. And that's something that Florida State loves to have. They like a guy that can go in and tackle. You lose Jarvis Brownlee, which was a nice factor to have in that run game defense. Jammie comes in and plays well last year, and I think a big season is ahead.